Hey everybody, Mike here, and in this video we'll talk about the 2015 version of the Acer Aspire V15 Nitro Black Edition. Last year's model was one of the best 15-inch multimedia notebooks of its time, and was well received by both reviewers and buyers. This new model builds on its predecessor's strong points, gets Skylake hardware and Nvidia 960M graphics. On a first look though, the 2015 and the 2014 models are pretty much identical, and that's because not much has changed on the outside. The updated Aspire V15 Nitro still gets a soft plastic case with a textured lid cover and a smooth interior. I'm a fan of this sort of rubbery finishing, which feels nice to touch and offers good grip. However, it also shows smudges and fingerprints easily, so those who will get this laptop will have a hard time keeping the interior clean. Personally, I also like this notebook's rather sober design. It does get a hint of flashiness with the chrome strip on its rear side, which is also made of plastic, but I can live with that. The Aspire V Nitro branding is engraved on this element, while on the trackpad there's a Black Edition signature, slight hints meant to show that this is not an ordinary laptop. Aesthetics aside, I feel Acer did a pretty good job with the overall craftsmanship quality, as this machine feels sturdy and well put together. There's some flex in the lid, so you might want to be careful when you carry this around, but the inner frame is strong and barely bulges even when pressed firmly. The hinges are well designed too, soft enough to allow users to easily lift the screen with a single hand, yet stiff enough to properly hold the display in place. Okay, let's turn our attention on the practical aspects now. All the ports are lined on the sides and most of them are placed on the right edge, which leads to a rather cluttered side, but at the same time won't interfere with the mouse since the left edge is so clean. I/O aside, you probably noticed by now the full-size keyboard present on this laptop. Well, mostly full-size, as the numpad area and the directional keys are somewhat cramped. Still, the keyboard is an update over the previous Nitro, with slightly firmer keys and a deeper stroke. Overall it types well, but I had a hard time getting used to it. I found the pressure point rather shallow, which causes a fair amount of missed strokes when you start using this keyboard. So that's something to keep in mind. On top of that, the keys are backlit in case you want to type in the dark, but the red illumination might not appeal to everyone. A large trackpad sits beneath the keyboard with a smooth surface and overall solid performance. It handles swipes, taps and gestures well, and in fact my only complaint about it are the rather clunky physical clicks. Now let's move past the input methods and turn on to the screen. Our version came with a 4K IPS sharp panel, which is simply astonishing. It's a wide-gamut panel capable of covering 100% of the Adobe RGB gamut, so it impresses with its accurate colors, sharpness, large viewing angles and deep contrast. Now, there's room for improvement when it comes to the maximum brightness, so you'll probably want to keep this laptop mostly indoors, but otherwise this is a great screen. And how about performance? Well, the Aspire V15 Nitro is going to be available in a bunch of different configurations, and we have one of the base models for this review with a Core i5-6300HQ processor, only 8GB of RAM, Nvidia 960M graphics and dual storage with an SSD for the operating system and a hard drive for the content. Higher-end versions get more RAM and a Core i7 processor. Our test model proved very responsive though, capable of easily handling everyday tasks like browsing or watching any kind of multimedia content, including 4K. The screen and the good audio system with 4 speakers greatly enhance the overall multimedia experience. And while dealing with casual activities, the laptop remains cool and fairly quiet, although the 2 fans inside are active pretty much all the time. But the V15 Nitro can also tackle serious loads, from professional software like Adobe Premiere or Eclipse to some of the latest games. However, the acoustics and thermals do suffer in these situations as the inner components and the outer case reach high temperatures, while the fans ramp up significantly. When it comes to games, you should also keep in mind that the Nvidia GTX 960M graphics is merely a mid-level chip, so don't expect to play the latest launches at the native 4K resolution, as that's not going to happen. In fact, this is one of the limitations of the high-resolution display. The other is efficiency, which corroborated with the powerful hardware and the fairly small battery leads to short battery life. Basically, don't expect more than 3 to 4 hours of use on a charge. The 4K screen is also an expensive option, as you'll have to pay several hundreds extra to get it, usually bundled with a Core i7 processor, at least 16GB of RAM and dual storage. The alternative is to get the more basic models instead, with 8GB of RAM, a hard drive and a pretty good Full HD matte display, which usually sell for under $1,000. You'll want to add more RAM and an SSD to these basic versions, but you'll still end up cheaper than if you'd buy a higher-end configuration from Acer. Anyway, I'm going to tell you more about this Skylake version of the Aspire V15 Nitro Black Edition in the written article on ultrabookreview.com. It's the first link in the description. You'll find extra details on performance, potential throttling issues, the available configurations, battery life, and a few other aspects I could not cover in this short clip, so make sure to check that out. Now, wrapping this up, I feel Acer did a good job with this updated Aspire V15 Nitro Black. Potential buyers will appreciate the keyboard, the trackpad, the display options, the hardware, and the solid pricing policies. This computer is also a bit thinner and lighter than many of its rivals, like the MSI GP62 or the Asus ROG GL552VW, but at the same time reaches higher temperatures under load, which also leads to performance losses in some cases. And this is in fact my main need with this laptop, and perhaps the main reason why some of you might look past it. The short battery life and the difficult upgrades are some of the others. It's worth noting that quite a few owners of the original V15 Nitro complain about constant Wi-Fi drops and overall poor Wi-Fi signal. I haven't encountered any drops in the 2 weeks I've been using this test model, but the signal strength does get poor once you get more than 10 meters away from the router. So if you have dodgy internet connection in your office or home, this would be another concern. Long story short though, this new V15 Nitro Black Edition is one of the better 15-inch multimedia laptops in its class. It's not perfect, but it's definitely worth more than a look. With that in mind, we'll wrap up this clip. Hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed it, get in touch in the comment section if you have any questions or anything to add, and don't forget to check out the written article on ultrabookreview.com for all the extra details. Catch you later.